we don't appreciate the freedom that we have because
Mm.
nowadays people are not really reading books that were on the battlefield. Like yours was World War II. This was the Civil War. A Girl Called Samson is the Revolutionary War. All her friends were killed. We need to realize whose shoulders we're standing on.
Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
Conversing about books over a cup of joe.
seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow.
And welcome to the Recap Book Chat. Thank you so much for joining us today. In honor of the 250 years of America being America, Nana, Mom, had the great idea of doing a podcast about freedom. So explain what we're doing today.
A lofty goal. So what we're going to attempt to do is pull from books that we've read and look at the different aspects of freedom and how blessed we are to live in a free country. And maybe some of these ones, we're standing on the shoulders of the people who gave so much that we need to be filled with gratitude and appreciation. And also just to come at it from different angles. I just discovered this author named Claire Keegan, who's an Irish author. And I'm going to read a quote and then we'll get started. She is a little girl. She's writing from the viewpoint of a little girl who went to stay with her aunt and uncle in the country. She did not have freedom where she was. You can tell it, and it's just beautiful. It's not even 100 pages. But here's what she says near the end. We fold what clothes I have and place them inside, along with the books we bought at Webb's in Gory. Heidi, which makes me want to read Heidi, by the way. What Katie Did Next, The Snow Queen. At first, I struggled with some of the bigger words, but Kinsella, which is her uncle, a strong male figure too, kept his fingernail under each patiently until I guessed it or half guessed it. And then I did this by myself until I no longer needed to guess and read on. It was like learning to ride a bike. I felt myself taking off, the freedom of going places I couldn't have gone before, and it was easy. So I just thought that was beautiful. So
That is beautiful.
let's explore from all these different angles, and I'll let you start us off.
Okay, so it was hard we tried to narrow it down to 5. We ended up doing 5 adult books and 5 plus kid books. So we'll start with the adults, and I'm going to pull up this one. So The Last Green Valley. And this is a book by Mark Sullivan.
Powerful.
And so powerful. And we read this. It's been a minute since we've read it and done a podcast on it. It was in 2021, I want to say. So it's fairly new. So good. And it's a true story. And I really love how Mark Sullivan writes. We've done other books of his. Okay. Just to summarize it, it's this detailed escape from World War II prison camps of this family. And it's really all about them reclaiming their life and freedom. Like, they left Russia because they were starving, and they have to go through Nazis in the middle of World War II.
Harrowing
In search of freedom. They're trying so hard. So this book is huge about really the cost of freedom and the fact that not everyone has just freedom just to live, to build your own house, to go start a business, there's so many freedoms that a lot of people around the world do not have. And that's true today, unfortunately. But this is such a good book. The biggest takeaway from the book is a quote that they say throughout it, but it's like, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And that was the mentality of one of the main characters that helped them get through hard times. Like, instead of the victim mindset, this is horrible, and it is. Everything they're going through is horrible. But the reason they're able to get through it is because they think, what can I learn from this? And they keep thinking, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. So there's something, even in the bad stuff, that is for me. So great book about freedom. If you haven't read it,
Powerful.
Loved it. Yeah. The Last Green Valley.
Oh, man.
Okay. Balls to you.
Well, we'll go back, and this is one that I read to your dad when he was recovering from surgery of The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. And man, this was one of those that I'd always heard about, but for some reason I had it on the shelf and I'm trying to read guy books for him. But his writing, and when I looked him up, he's like really young and he died. I think he died not too long after he wrote this. I was reading all that about tuberculosis stuff, and then how dots connect when you don't expect it. I had read a book on tuberculosis, and that's what killed Stephen Crane. But I think this was maybe his second novel. Yeah, about the Civil War. And the Red Badge of Courage is basically a wound when you get hurt. That is your badge of courage. But this walks you through, just like the last Green Valley, put us in the middle of World War II. We're dodging bullets. I mean, you're with the family dodging the bullets. Eating grass is what they were doing in that book. I still remembered it. In this book, like they're charging forward, and then this one guy that you're following, the young soldier, he's doubting himself. He wants to turn and run. And when he turns and run, he's not alone. And which I had to give back the book of a girl named Sampson, but she wanted to go fight. This is the Civil War. She's fighting in the Revolutionary War. I think some of us are just because she's a girl, but she wanted to fight. She never turned she spit in the eye of, danger. Whereas there's a lot in this that I'm saying, how was there even a war with everybody running the other way? But she said a line in A Girl Called Samson that when she was on the battlefield, she never realized that men have their challenges too. Like she thought women were repressed, women, they had to wear dresses, women this and all that. But I think because she'd been both, she realized that there's a struggle. The struggle is real. But in this one, it does turn around. But your dad, I remember he was getting pretty upset. He's like, what is going on in this book? But it just shows you growth and vivid descriptions. Oh, man. And I think this is good. I think we should all, like you said before, we don't appreciate the freedom that we have because nowadays people are not really reading books that were on the battlefield. Like yours was World War II. This was the Civil War. A Girl Called Samson is the Revolutionary War. All her friends were killed. We need to realize whose shoulders we're standing on.
Great job. I didn't think about that. But you're right. The fact that the amount that people read has gone dramatically down affects entitlement, really. Because you're right. We're not hearing those stories or reading those stories of the challenges that people face. So that's a huge point. I love that you pulled that out. Okay, next. The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. It is a Russian novel, 1880, and it's a doozy, but it is so well written, and it really examines faith, examines family, mortality, and it really that heavy burden and the gift of free will. So, like, what do we do with our free will? It's a gift, but it can be a burden, and I love how they really struggle with that. What's the question of humanity's capacity for freedom versus security. And so, yeah, love it. Good versus evil, but really it can be tied in a lot with kind of what our American ideals of liberty and responsibility. Even though it was written a long time ago, it's still very applicable today. So,
and it is worth the effort. It is worth the effort. It is it's a tomb, but little by little you will get through it, and man, you will be probably one of the best discourses in there about the existence of God is in that book. Yes. Which that would be worth reading it just to meet Alyosha, to meet his brothers. And yeah, you do have freedom, but your freedom, like they did not have a mother. And because of that, there's a train wreck, and they didn't have much for a father, but your freedom or bring responsibility. And when you don't do the responsibility, live up to your responsibility, then the ripples go out and affect.
And each brother kind of chose a different path.
Yes.
So.
And then you explore that, and it's just, whoa. mind-boggling. That was my favorite. I'm listening to Dostoevsky's book called The Idiot, which is not a good one. And someone said, "What are you reading now?" The Idiot. And they're like, "What? Sorry?"
They're like, fine. Well, sorry I asked. Don't call me names.
Yeah. Okay. Mine, I'm going to go nonfiction and talk about the glittering vices.
So good.
We did this, and man, I still think about this. Like, I guess one thing that pops out was the thing on sloth surprised me that you could be a workaholic and be a sloth. Sloth means you're just not doing the work that God wants you to do. You may be staying at the office until late because you won't go home and work on the relationships that matter. That is sloth. And that, man, I mean, it blew me away. I was just like, what? What do you? And Rebecca DeYoung did a great job on that. This one would be a slow read that, not fast, but well worth it. This is the one I would want to reread because I'm going to forget. And when we did podcasts on that, we just did one vice at a time, which I thought was really good. And when you see a vice can quickly become, vice and virtue are so close. They can turn. You can think it's a vice, but it'll be a virtue. I mean, to me, he's very conscientious worker and all that. That looks good. But that reminds me of Jesus talking about clean the inside of the cup, not the outside. Doesn't work, because your family, at the end of the day, if you don't lead your family the right way, then it really doesn't matter what you did at the office. Because on your deathbed, nobody at the office will be there. It will be your family. So, yeah, in The Idiot, he says, when you're a baby and you're born, everybody is around you and they welcome you in. When you're old and you're dying, nobody wants to hold your hand. I never thought about that. But anyway, glittering vices.
Such a good one. I'm glad you pulled that out because really that's really the most important thing, really, is because about freedom. You can't be free and live in sin. So, the Bible talks about slaves to sin. We were slaves to sin. When we have Christ, we can walk in the freedom that comes from that. So we can't be free if we're living in sin. And so those vices, they keep us chained up.
Good visual, sis.
So, but I love what you pulled out about the workaholic too, because again, that's an acceptable addiction. Like that is an addiction. And sometimes people, if someone in their family has struggled with like alcoholism, sometimes the kid will go the opposite. They're still struggling with an addiction, but it just is an acceptable one. So just because society says something is good, we don't need to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
in fact, usually that's not when you should go with it. Yeah.
No, exactly. Okay. So next is Les Mis. So I mean, huge again, so good. It's a very large book, but the whole thing is about freedom, essentially. 1862 is when it was published by Victor Hugo. And Jean Valjean, we see this guy who unfairly, essentially, ends up in imprisonment and all the different escapes and what it takes. So he's fighting for freedom physically, but there's the spiritual bondage too that has him and the societal bondage that has him. And so it really, the whole book explores spiritual, personal, societal, all these different types of freedoms. And it really, again, that resonates with our values and kind of what we want America to stand for and second chances and all of this. But such a good read. And so, yeah,
unforgettable.
Unforgettable.
Mm-hmm. Because when he was unfairly imprisoned, and you think of, I forgot his name, but the guy in The Count of Monte Cristo, unfairly imprisoned, both of them.
Oh, that's another good one. We forgot about that one.
Well, we had to make a choice, but this one you said screams freedom because there's other characters in there. But I do think that because people are not reading these deep books, these classics, that we don't have the groundwork to even discuss things that we at one time did. Because remember what the Abba said in that book, who benefits from you being here? Well, I've used that over and over again. Like, wait a minute, who's going to benefit? And the Les Mis, you see how unfairly he was treated. But I remember when we started that, we loved the guy at the beginning, the bishop. What a guy, So there's so many rich characters in that. So if I had to pick, Les Mis or Count of Monte Cristo. Probably would pick Les Mis, but it is even thicker, I think. I don't know. They're both a
They're
tomb.
both.
But just if one year, you say, well, I'll read a thick book. Well, that could be it. It's a tomb, but then you feel so good when you do finish it that you want to, yoo-hoo.
And the symbolism. Like there's a part in the book when Jean Valjean, he literally has to go through the sewers to get free. So if you think about it, and it's so true for us. Where is that place in your life that you don't want to go? What's the place that you don't want to look? Because that's your sewer. And to get freedom, you have to go through the crap, essentially, to get free of it. But most of the time, we choose to stay in comfort and not face that sewer because we don't want to go through it. And you see that all throughout the book. Victor Hugo is a brilliant author, and he does that you can still apply to your life. You're like these extreme symbolisms, really. But I love that part where, because I just can't imagine going through a sewer. That just has to be the worst. That's how he gets free at one part of the book. So,
well, that remember that TV show Monk? He has to go down the sewer, and he has this aversion to all things dirty, and there's rats dropping down and all that. And that's what I was thinking about, because for us to go through it would be bad, but for Monk to do it was, I mean, he had a hanky on it. He's trying to do it all. But yeah, face those fears, face those, and it's going to be ugly. And that leads us into this one.
The dark, stinky places that we don't want to deal with, that's exactly what we need to shine a light on and deal with.
Because I think that's to get to the freedom, you've got to risk. There's risk involved. And I would say getting in a sewer would be a big risk. Very big. And this one is called Here Be Dragons by Melanie Shankle. And this is a different kind of freedom, the freedom of your past and the baggage that we all carry. And some of us may not know we have this baggage, but she was doing this for her daughter, I think, is basically why she wrote the book. But Melanie's first dragon was her mother, and then her daughter was having dragons. And I do kind of think that girls deal with this a lot more than boys, because I remember once, this was in third grade, there was a girl in the class, and I thought she was a good girl because she did everything, she checked all the boxes, but you said, she's not as nice as you think she is. You ought to stand by the bathroom. Well, you were in third grade, but I always listened to my kids. I was like, okay. So I went and stood by the bathroom. I heard a different tone. I heard ugliness spewing out. I heard all this, and my eyes were open. I mean, the rose-colored glasses came off, and I'm like, whoa. And I had seen it before with other people, but I thought, in third grade? I thought that was young. But this one it's a quick read. It's a great, to me, I had a bunch of page numbers in the back that stood out to me. But man, I think I loved Phil Robertson when they made the movie and he laid everything out on the line. That's what she's doing. She's saying, yeah, there are dragons. Get ready for it. Was that G.K. Chesterton that said, there's no doubt that there's dragons. Let's let kids think we can slay the dragon. And then there's another dragon quote from The Hobbit. What is that one? I loved it.
Something along the lines of...
it's coming to me. Don't neglect to put a dragon in your calculations if a dragon lives nearby. And what Melanie Shankle is telling you, there's a dragon living nearby. So, and God tells us that in Ephesians, put on the armor of God. We all have a battle to fight. We all have a sewer to get in. We all have a dragon to slay. And let's do that.
And sometimes it's in your own home.
Yes.
Like with her, it's her mother. So
yes. And it can't even be the memory of, it could be someone that is already gone and passed, but just putting that to rest and resolving that. But definitely a good one. And I just like the title of it too. Here Be Dragons. Here Be Dragons. What's yours?
Good pick. Okay, we're going back. You're doing a nonfiction. I'll do a nonfiction too. Laura Hildenbrand, 2010. And the incredibly true story of Louis, is it Zamperini? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So, and he was an American Olympic runner. And then in World War II, he became a bombardier. his plane crashed in the Pacific. He survives 47 days on a raft, only to be captured by the Japanese and tortured. They have like brutal POW camps, all that survival. So again, this book is really about physical freedom, but also like the mental fortitude that that's the unbroken spirit is. It's amazing. It really is. It's a powerful, true story. I really can't believe it's a true story. Like, how does a human survive everything that Lewis survived?
And then the guy, the prison, that was probably one of the meanest, real, true characters I've ever seen. I've ever read about. That was horrible. And the fact that he went from it says on the back, incorrigible delinquent is what Louis was when he was a kid. He just had all this energy, and then, man, I was just like, it's unforgettable. Yeah, you won't forget this one.
He goes through the physical and mental, like struggling for freedom there. When he finally does get that, then it becomes a spiritual battle. Because then it's like, if you held on, like everything that happened to him, which it would be hard not to hold on to that.
Yes,
all the pain of that. But if you're holding on to that and not forgiving, you're not free. So there's so many different levels of freedom. And this book, I feel like it's a quintessential American read about freedom.
And they did make a movie, but as always, what do we always say?
The book was better.
Yeah. I hate to say that over and over again, but hey, I'm telling you, it is.
But the movie was good. It's not, it does go with the storyline, but yeah, you just can't get it all in the movie.
Books go deep, I mean, I think when we just go with movies, you're just getting a surface level, and because I did get your dad to read this one. He went and he loved it. And, it takes more time to read a book, but you get to experience what they're thinking, and a movie can't show that, This one, you had a painting that went with this one, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michael Richardson. And I think there's basically 3 of these. There's one about her daughter, and then another one that just came out.
Oh, I didn't know there was another one that came out.
I just saw it at...
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll add that to the list.
Yeah. And this one I put for the freedom of education that this one is my favorite, of course. I do tend to like the first one, but these little kids are waiting and waiting for these book women to come up here and deliver whatever books, scraps of books, whatever. They're waiting. And one of them, I still remember giving her a lifesaver, because they saved this lifesaver and wanted her to have it. And then Cussie has her own problem because she's blue. And that brings a plethora of problems for Cussie. And her life has been hard because of that. And just that time period but it's a beautiful read. And my dear friend Jana, who, when I met her, she said, I read the Bible and I read the Bible only. That's all I read. That's my book. I'm not a reader. And this is the book that changed her into a reader. Now she's reading, I think she just finished Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is a tomb.
Wow.
So this book and this is a good start. See, it's not very thick, and it just kind of pulls you in, and you're rooting for Cussie all the way. And it's a lot of different freedoms on different levels, but good.
And
good
it's based on true things. Like
that is true. Yeah.
Some actual people who were blue, like that. It sounds weird, but it's a condition, and so there was really people that their skin was blue, and at that time they were treated worse than African Americans. They were really treated poorly. So yeah, that's a great historical fiction read. I love that you pulled that out. I'm excited for I didn't know there was a third one. So I'm going to do this was that your last adult one?
I have one more. Did I not count right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, my goodness. I had 6. I had this one left.
Oh, go ahead. Talk about that one, because I have a good one to transition to our kids.
Okay. So. Well, this one was, and I think you would agree, Destiny of the Republic by Candace Millard. Wow.
So good.
If you don't know James Garfield, you need to. And what a man. I mean, talk about probably integrity. His integrity is unbelievable. I can't even, I don't know. I to be wounded and it's not like he was shot, okay? Because like Abraham Lincoln was shot and he died. McKinley was shot and he died. JFK was shot and he died. Those are the ones that were assassinated. He lingered on in great pain, and they're digging in there. And
yeah.
And then she includes side notes of, I mean, she goes and tells you what the assassin was like, what he's like, which is scary. And then there's also side notes about what air conditioning was invented because of James A. Garfield getting hurt, and they wanted to keep him cool. And so, and Alexander Graham Bell was working on X-rays, and they're trying to find that bullet. And but I don't know. This one doctor in here, his name was Bliss, Dr. Bliss. He's the one that kept digging and probing. And so I just add, is that where we get the phrase ignorance is bliss? Literally, he did not care about he didn't care about Garfield. He was wanting the bullet out and wanting to accolade himself. And so bad it was that the one who did kill him say, I didn't kill him, the doctors did. So that,
which he's not like wrong. Like literally, he would have survived had he been shot and left alone.
mm-hmm.
And they just like he would have survived and been fine if just left it in there. But yeah, all
Isn't
the digging.
It's
crazy.
Her underlying that Destiny of the Republic, a tale of madness, medicine, and the murder of a president. Wow, pick it up. It's great.
Very well written. Good.
Sorry
good
about the. I guess I can't count those basic skills.
Well, I'm going to use this one as a transition to the kids' book. So this, if you haven't heard of Jocko Willink, he is a former Navy SEAL, and he has written some kids' books, which I'll get into that, but he also has written adult books. What was the one you mentioned earlier?
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership. So that's for adults. This is kind of like a field manual. Discipline equals freedom. And so he really emphasizes this point, and I really hadn't heard it until him, that discipline is the path to freedom. And so I'm going to read from this, and then we'll transition to the kids' books. But when you make a decision to do more, to be more, self-discipline comes when you decide to make a mark on the world. If you don't think you are disciplined, it is because you haven't decided to be disciplined yet. It is because you haven't created it yet. You haven't become it yet. So where does it come from? It comes from you. So make the decision. Make the commitment. Become the discipline. Embrace its cold and relentless power, and it will make you better and stronger and smarter and faster and healthier than anything else. And most important, it will make you free. And so he was looking for books that kind of are for young boys and really talk that way and talk about being disciplined and freedom. And so my younger son has loved these books. I don't know if I grabbed the first one.
The first one's red.
Yeah, I didn't grab it, but they're called The Way of the Warrior Kid. And he's they're so motivational. And he talks about, it follows this one kid who was kind of scrawny and kind of getting bullied and all this, and kind of how discipline has an impact on him. But so good. Highly recommend.
I love that you pulled that out, because sometimes we don't think of discipline equaling freedom, but it is like you often call it eating the frog. That's how you're going to get somewhere if you do eat the frog and do the hard thing. Even in that book, believe it or not, there's part where the nephew doesn't know his multiplication facts, and Jocko is like, "Oh no, you have to learn these multiplication facts." I mean, it's just in anything you attack. I have a good friend who can cook anything. She's a culinary genius, but she said croissants were hard, and it took her 2 weeks of trying and failing before she could bake a croissant. Well, I mean, I think we kind of fear failure instead of embrace it. That's how we're going to get better. So great choice, sis. Good job.
Thank you.
This one is my only chapter book for kids. If you don't know Laurie Halse Anderson, man, she's good. And I just finished one it was about the epidemic, and it was really good too. But this one kind of fell in with this, and it's called Forge. It's part of, I hate to say it, series, but I didn't know it was a series when I was reading it. But anyway, this tells one part that I still remember. They're at Valley Forge, and the men are so hungry. They are cooking the soles of their shoes because there's leather in them, and they're trying to eat that. They're stewing it or whatnot. So it's kind of, we don't realize what the suffering that they, I'd often seen pictures of them with their feet wrapped up, bleeding, and I'd seen paintings of that, but I was like, what happened to their shoes? What happened to their shoes? Well, I guess she wanted to know what happened to the shoes, and wow.
So they ate them. Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because when you think about it, leather is a cow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the skin of a cow, but if you're hungry enough, like even in the last Green Valley, they were eating grass and it made their stomach swell. Apparently we're not cows, and we can't process that like that. And so this right here, it does let you know we're standing on the shoulders of all these people who sacrifice so much. And I think readers understand that more, but great book. It has a little bit, this is for your higher readers, but wow, they won't forget it. They won't.
Okay, good one.
Yeah.
Okay, number next. So good. Again, this would be for your higher readers too. It's a little bit more mature, but definitely a kid's book still. Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayari. I'm probably messed that up, but 2020, so fairly new, and kind of like Here Be Dragons. This is a memoir-like novel, and it's about a young Iranian refugee, his arrival in America. Like, his mom was being hunted essentially for being a Christian, and I've never read a book like this before. It's humorous. There's parts that are funny, but there's parts that are so real and heartbreaking, and it's just really poignant stories. He ties all these stories together, really about escaping the oppression in Iran. So that's part of the freedom, is getting out of the country, but then in the new country, and they go to Oklahoma of all places. So I mean, whoa. Talk about culture shock. In the middle of Oklahoma, kind of nowhere. And so adapting to a new country, and really how he finds freedom through storytelling and truth and all of that. It's a beautiful book. I love it so much. It's so unique. I highly recommend that. Everything Sad is Untrue.
Yeah, I loved how you said that when they escaped Iran, then they had other problems. I mean, even their journey out of to America was so hard, and his mother, whoa. And he's still, there's videos of him and his mother baking together, and he loves his mother to this day. And I've watched a couple, because his mother was the anti-victim. She was she never considered herself a victim, ever. And I loved that. She, talk about strong, as far as strength of character, she was right up there with Garfield. She did not let it get her down, and she was she worked all day, and she was like a doctor, but she came over here and had to start over, and she's cleaning and she's doing all this stuff. And guess what? Every night when she goes home, she makes them a homemade meal. And I was like, what?
Well, even before that, let's back up. Before they made it to America, they're trying to get free. They're in between. I can't remember if it was Italy or France. They were a refugee in one of those countries. And the way the system works, they don't know if they can get out, when they'll get out. And there's a bunch of refugees, and they're just kind of hanging out. She doesn't do that.
No.
She goes and gets used workbooks about English, and erases
until her fingers bleed. Yeah.
And her kids, so then they're not wasting time. They're learning English while they're waiting. I'm like, incredible.
I mean, rock star mom there for sure. Yes, I remember she was, and he thought, oh, good, we'll just play, just going to play around. Well, no, that's not how the story works. It hurt. I mean, you have to grow. And she knew that. She wanted them to be growing. And man, well, that's a great, sis. That's a good one. Love that book. And that one also has another, he has another book. I haven't read it, so I don't know if it's a sequel to Everything Sad is Untrue, but he does have a new one out. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to go to picture books, which you could just read a ton of these. This was kind of off of this one is Just Being Audrey. And I just want to say that the reason this book, and boys and girls both love this book when I read it in 3rd grade or 4th, and because she was herself. There's something to be said about being yourself. I mean, why is Emma M. Lyon so popular? Because here's a young girl, she has problems, but she's herself and she embraces that. Well, everybody knows that Audrey Hepburn became a movie star and all that, but she was refused to be a ballerina. That's what she wanted to be. And they said, no, you can't be, they told her what she couldn't be. But in Hollywood, she did not fit. She went home and she was like everything sad is untrue. She made her family homemade meals. She was not the typical movie star. I even heard that Ryan Gosling, after he made The Notebook, he did not want to be like a regular movie star, and he went and got a job at Subway. And Hollywood was upset with Ryan because they said, that's not how this works. You're not supposed to be working. But he said, they lose their purpose if you don't have a job. And he said, that Subway kept me grounded. And I said, man, just think about you go in there and you see him. But that's how she was. She would invite people over. She was just, you always say class. She has class, chic. That would be this one. Just being on. So that's kind of taking a sidebar, but still that's freedom because you're not.
Wait, what was her backstory? Didn't she come from...
it does connect with the war. Thank you, sis. That is true. She's in the middle
Romania,
of
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why she liked chocolate, because when she was 10 years old, World War II broke out, and then they had to go and she said they had to hide out. Her and her family and 40 other people hid in a small house in the country. And then resistance, she held dances and stuff like that. So, yeah, thank you. That does connect. Yes.
Good. That is a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You helped me connect it. Yay.
Okay. We are, and I'm just going to go, this is the first book, but this is a kid's book, but so good. I love this entire series. It's the Wingfeather Saga. This first one's called On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. It's by Andrew Peterson. This was written in 2008. And so this is a way to explore freedom through fantasy, because it follows the Igby family, and all these characters, they're seeking liberation from oppression of these dark forces. And so similar to World War II, we could really tie it into how the Nazis would go and they would take over places and basically life would change for everybody. Freedoms were lost. And so they're fighting that. And this whole series really highlights this quest for freedom amid danger and their struggles and how you have to be bold. And anyway, it's really good. It's my kids have loved it. There's a series, they made it into a TV series on Angel Studios, which is really good. So highly recommend that one for kiddos or adults who like fantasy. So good.
Okay. And I would kind of piggyback on that the Green Ember series is kind of like that as well. That they have their good versus evil, trying to get free. And it's kind of like that. And if you had younger kids, I would start with the Green Ember and then build to the Wingfeather Saga. Don't you think? Kind of like their level. Okay. So I had a girl. I'll still stick with the girl. This was Molly Bannicky, and my kids absolutely love this book. So she starts out as a milkmaid and spills the milk, and she's going to be beheaded because she spilled the milk. But in England, if you can read, it saves your life. But you're an indentured servant. You're sent to America. So she read from the Bible, and it saved her life. But I know how we're all big about that's not fair. Well, we've talked about a lot of people like the Unbroken, Les Mis. Even we didn't mention totally, but Count of Monte Cristo. There's a lot of people that were in prison unfairly, and that's what happened to her. But she earned her freedom and got a place, and the artwork is just stupendous, and her kindness. And anyway, her name was Molly Walsh, and she ends up being Molly Bannicky, and it connects with history. And I don't know if anybody knows who Benjamin Banneker is, but that would help you to know, because the guy who designed Washington, D.C., Pierre Lafont, he was a bit of a hothead, and Benjamin Banneker was his assistant. And he ended up, Pierre Lafont got mad, quit, And Benjamin Banneker, he's the one that designed and held up and all that.
Oh.
So, and I think that's her grandson. But if she hadn't done this, you can see it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, great.
There's generational sins and there's generational blessings.
Mm-hmm.
And we get, like, our actions kind of determine, are we gonna, what was that? What's that podcast? The Love Better podcast. He talked about that, and one of the recent ones was so good, talking about there was like 40 inmates in one of these prisons, and they found out they all had the same grandfather. And so it led this one guy to go back and look at this guy, and he was a womanizer, a thief,
I do
all
remember
this.
that. Yeah.
And it followed like what came out of his lineage, and there was like so many incarcerations and murders and all this. And then they followed this other guy, Jonathan Edwards, around the same time, and he had the opposite,
preachers, teachers, people that were
and even a vice president,
good purpose. Yes, good connection. Well done. What's your next one?
Okay, so Bronze Bow. We've talked about that. Wow. Such a powerful one. Really, the ultimate freedom. It follows a boy named Daniel, and his family's been killed by the Romans. This takes place during Jesus's time, so it's really cool. I don't know if I've read a lot of fictional books that take place during this time period, so it's interesting point of view to see. And he's a Jewish boy, to see what that was like for the Jews at that time living in there. What was happening? The Roman oppression that affected his. His dad was killed because of it, and his mom essentially, and so he's left with just a grandmother and a sick sister.
Broken. She's broken.
Broken. Yeah. That's a better way to put it. But anyway, he does end up coming across Jesus, so he's battling this bitterness towards the Romans and wanting freedom from them physically and fighting for that freedom. And at the same time, there's Jesus, and who's offering freedom of a different kind, a more sustainable, long-lasting freedom. And so, super good book. Highly recommend that one.
I mean,
who's the author of that one? That was
Elizabeth George Spear.
Thank you. Yes.
And she also, she's one of those authors, when you read one of her books, you will read all of them, because I have. But she also wrote Calico Captive, The Witch of Blackbird Pond, Sign of the Beaver, and they are all so good. And a couple of them, I think, are either Newbery Honor books or Newbery winner books. So she's good.
Okay, well, that was all mine, so finish us up.
Okay, well, I just thought we would go off a little bit here, because this is about a horse, Reckless. And when Jonah was little, he loved this book. And
it's a true story.
It is true. I think all my picture books were true. And this one, Reckless, Sergeant Reckless by Patricia McCormick. It's the true story of the little horse who became a hero. And, what is, and on the back, when we read about heroes, what makes a hero, whether it's a horse or whether it's a person, is when someone does the impossible, or what we think is impossible. And this one is a group of U.S. Marines are fighting in the Korean War, and they find this little bedraggled mare, and they train her. They had no idea what she could do, and she ends up saving the day. It's a beautiful story. And the artwork is amazing. So, and he loved it. This is them. Isn't it just so good? You put you there. And then I had two books for Booker T. Washington that I was just going to slide in. One is, I read this every year more than anything else. Just if you're listening and you can read, say a little prayer and say thank you. Because there's somebody somewhere that wants to be able to read and they can't. And that's what Booker T. Washington, he wanted to read so bad. And that's why it's called More Than Anything Else. And he learned to read by making letters in the dirt. And he learned. That's a beautiful story. But as with all of us, when you are a lifelong learner, you don't stop. You don't ever stop learning. And so this one is 50 Cents in a Dream. And this is young Booker T. Washington. So now he can read, but he wants to go more. And in this book, he's like a janitor to a college. And that's how he gets his foot in the door. And just the determination of, I think it was George Washington Carver that stood outside of a school. and listened. But they have that love for, they just want to learn, and I admire that. That's
you can
freedom from ignorance, I guess.
You can learn without reading, but reading is such an important tool to learn. Like, it just accelerates your learning. So a great job of pulling those out. So
it opens
because
doors.
It goes with freedom. Reading definitely goes with freedom. So freedom to expand your world, to see from different perspectives.
And we just gave you a smattering because we were throwing around so many books. We never got to East of Eden, which is really, that's a classic. And that's a little smaller than the ones we named. And man, John Steinbeck, wow. That was the one that, I was just like, whoa.
And that takes place in America.
Yes. And, you're the one that said, you're like that person. You come up with book all over your face. And I said, oh, best compliment ever. Thanks, sis. But I think that's the book when I read that I really started annotating more. I think you kind of like gave me permission to go ahead and come up with book all over your face. Get into it. But anyway, choose something that stretches you. And it's kind of like Jocko Willink said, that discipline will give you freedom. And we'll just, people do different things to start a habit. And I think the main thing to do is just start, just say, well, I'm going to read to my kids every day. And if you start a streak, then keep on doing it. And if you do drop the ball, get right back on. And I don't usually track. I'm going to read every day. I don't always read every book. I try to say read a little bit, but everybody's different. Do you read one book a day? Do you read one book at a time, or do you read a couple, or how do you do it?
Me?
Yeah,
I do better
the other person on the podcast.
I didn't know if it was rhetorical, like throwing it out there. So no, I actually do better if I read one. I read my Bible every day, but then if I read one book a day, but I have got off that somewhat because I try to keep up with you, which is an impossible task. But so I have multiple books going, and I feel like for me, it makes me overwhelmed. So I need to go back and finish, like just focus and finish, and then one at a time. That works better for me. I can do a fiction and a nonfiction, but that's probably about it. But so I'm in the middle of a lot right now because I was trying to be like you. I'm not like you. I just need to be
yourself. Be Kate. Be Kate.
Yeah, I can't consume the amount of books that you consume, so I have to cut it back.
I don't finish all of them, and I do get overwhelmed myself. You know what overwhelms me is if they're borrowed books. Yeah, like I got to get it back to the person. I got to get it back to him. And that, the library doesn't do me that way, but I feel like because, they might want this book back. And I had a friend at church, and she said, I've read it. You take your time with it. I've read it. And she kind of calmed me down, but I was just like, but yeah, it is. I think there's as many ways to read as there are people. You just have to find, but just make sure that it happens.
Yeah, I like what you said. A little bit every day, even if it's just a page. Sometimes we think, and when I say we, I'm talking about me. I think and not just reading, in any task, I will do it big, but I only want to, to do it big and get it done. But really, life works better when you're consistent in small.
That is so
consistently small steps instead of huge big ones every once in a while. You'll get farther with the small steps. So
and then don't let inconveniences derail you. Because here's a quote. I'll leave you with this, and it's a good quote by G.K. Chesterton. Inconvenience, let's reframe it. Instead of saying, oh, that's an inconvenience, he says inconveniences are unexpected adventures.
That's good.
Yeah. So like, where's this going to lead me? What am I going to do? So and also I've done like 3 Bible chapters a day, and then I've just read 1 chapter. And you're right. Sometimes just 1 chapter is a lot better than 3 or 4 or 5, trying to get a bunch in, to slow down. So I really think it's what season you're in. We go through life in seasons. And if you're in the child rearing season, it may just be a chapter. I remember sometimes if you guys were sick, it was a verse. I read a verse, and I just kept rehearsing that verse. But sometimes, it's just a verse, and sometimes it is 3 chapters, but, just embrace the season you're in.
That's good. And that is a wrap on our freedom episode.
And we just thank you for joining us and exploring all the beauty that reading can bring our way. We want you to know that we just appreciate you, and we hope that you reflect
to connect and have a very happy 4th of July, a 250th if you're in America, 4th of July.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Embrace the freedom, and we appreciate you a lot. And we will catch you on the next one.